So what I want to share with you today is how to service a Husqvarna chainsaw. What I've got on a table in front of me is a Husqvarna 137 chainsaw and a Husqvarna 141, and with the exception of a little bit of extra oomph in the 141, these chainsaws are very similar and they require very similar servicing. Both of these chainsaws were sitting around for a long time without being used, and a friend of mine picked them up and asked me to get them running. So I've already serviced the 137, but now I'm going to show you what I did by servicing the 141 on camera. So one of the first things I want to do is to find out if this has any gas in it, and if it does, it's probably old, but we'll try to start it and see what happens. It does have gasoline in it. We'll check for bar oil. And it does have bar oil. So let's give it a pull and see if it'll start. Okay, so surprisingly it actually does start and run, and my friend will be pleased. But what's going to please him more is that I'm going to service it anyway for the sake of the video, so that you can see how it's done and what I did need to do to the 137 to get that running. So now, to get the cover off of this thing, you could use a flathead screwdriver, or if you have it, a T25 Torx, excuse me. And there are 3 screws here, up here, and in this case there's one back here that's missing, but normally that would be there. I'll make sure to replace that before my friend gets this back. Lift the cover off, and now here we're looking at spark plug. And here's the air filter. We'll start by getting a regular flat-headed screwdriver. Take these 2 screws out. Now this plastic cover here is held in place by 2 nuts. And a 10mm will take that off. If you don't have any of these magnetic trays, go get yourself some. Harbor Freight, pretty dirt cheap. well worth it to keep all your nuts and bolts in the right spot. Okay, so we take this plastic cover off here, and now we can actually see the carburetor. Here's the carburetor and the fuel line. And then there are two studs holding this carburetor in place. Those two studs have a very small metric hex head to them. I believe it's a 7mm. First, what I'll do though is I'll take the throttle control off. In this case, all you have to do with this is how the trigger works. But all you have to do is pull this out and then twist it a bit, and the linkage will come out of the carburetor. So now there you go, turn these two studs out. Come on. There you go. Okay. Now, we can lift this whole thing right out of there. Nope, I'm wrong. I forget, there's a bracket holding this carburetor in place. And down here are two Phillips head screws. Now, let me close the choke, and I'm going to blow a little air in there to clean this dust out to show you better what's going on there. And the reason I closed the choke is because I obviously don't want the sawdust to go into the engine. Alright, so now, if you take a close look, hope you can see that on the camera, these two screws have to come out. This screw is actually holding a ground cable. So when we put these screws back in, remember to reconnect that wire. There you go. So now this bracket should lift right out. And now the carb should be loose. Now this plastic piece here is so from the outside you can access the high and low needles, and then up here the throttle speed. We can just pull that off like so. Set that aside. Now there's two other things holding this carburetor in place. One is the fuel line, and pay attention that the fuel line, it comes around this plastic tab and up and over. Let's pull this. We're going to replace this fuel line anyway. Well, it's not going to come off real easy. So I'm just going to cut it off. And now out with the carburetor also comes, this is the choke lever. And you can Pop that off, and then we're going to set it back in place for now. And also pay attention, back here is a gasket that went up against the intake. So set that aside. And now we have our carburetor. Now I do notice one difference between the 137 and this 141, and that is that the 137 had a Zama carburetor. This one happens to be a Walbro. So they look nearly identical, but different manufacturers. So you'll have to keep that in mind when you get a rebuild kit for this. So for now, I'm going to set this aside, and we are going to focus on the carburetor.